So, friends, what LC can do, what it cannot do, let us try to understand that. So, what it can do, it can provide a means of prompt payment to the seller provided the conditions are fulfilled. Eliminate extensive credit investigation of the buyer since the seller's credit risk has been assumed by the issuing or the confirming bank. So it can eliminate the extensive credit investigation of the buyer since the credit risks which is there for the seller has been assumed or taken by the issuing bank or the confirming bank. Now, confirming bank is the local bank which confirms the letter of credit. It can assure the buyer it will only be required to pay if the conditions of the credit are met. Otherwise, the money is with the buyer only. And if the conditions are met, he is more secure, he will get the goods on time, he will get the goods in his country at the designated port of discharge, and he can collect the goods in a much safer manner with better prospects and better security. It can provide a base for a bank to engage in temporary inventory and receivable cycle of international trade financing. So it's a kind of the system of international trade financing, and the LC provides this base for the banks to engage in temporary inventory. It's like a escrow account. The money which is generally collected by the issuing bank in advance unless the buyer has a overdraft limit. So the bank is kind of acting as a third party with the inventory of the money that is to be paid by the buyer at the right time, at the right place. So that role is taken over by the bank. So what it cannot do, it cannot substitute for the integrity of the seller or make background and integrity checking unnecessary. That checking, that due diligence remains. It cannot lend soundness to the transactions that were not basically sound in the first place. If the whole transaction is bad transaction or dirty transactions, which actually bank will not know. Bank will purely rely on the originality and the genuineness of the documents. What happens behind those genuine and original documents, bank is not able to go to that extent. It is not possible. So therefore, the LC cannot lend soundness to such nefarious transactions if they have been artificially created. The LC cannot absolve the seller or the buyer from the contractual liability, the export sales contract or any international contract between the buyer and the seller. That is not the concern of the bank. Bank cannot go into that. It purely relies on the LC opening instructions given by the buyer. Whether those instructions are as per the contractual liability of both the parties, bank is not concerned with that, and bank should not be concerned with that. Otherwise, this system cannot work. It cannot remove the risk of foreign exchange fluctuations. So that foreign exchange fluctuation risk will remain, and that has to be managed by the first and the second party, that is the buyer and the seller. And it can definitely not guarantee that shipment will be made by the seller. So as I told you that the physical part cannot be taken care by the bank, and therefore it purely relies on the documents, transport documents, their genuineness and originality, and to the best of the knowledge of the bank. Again, it is possible that the documents may not be original, but they seem to be original. So that whole of this thing can purely base on the bank's experience and being in the trade of international trade financing for a long time, being a reputed bank. They will apply their best of their knowledge and training to detect any discrepancy in the documents, but it cannot be 100% correct or foolproof. Finally, the documentary credit or the letter of credit, by their nature, are separate transaction from the sale or the other contracts on which they may be based, and banks are in no way concerned or bound by such contracts. So again I am telling you that the bank purely depends on the LC opening instructions of the buyer. It is under the UCP, it is always discouraged to give any reference to such contracts which are beyond the letter of credit, because letter of credit itself is a contract between the bank and the buyer at one end, and the letter of credit is a contract between the bank and the exporter on the other side. Bank is not concerned with any other contractual obligation and the presence of any other contracts. Even if any reference whatsoever to such contracts is included in the credit, although UCP discourages this, but even if it is included, bank will not give heed to such contracts, and it will absolve itself from such contractual obligations which are beyond the letter of credit.